Hey everybody, it's Jay Privman along with Marty McGee as we continue to recap the road to the Kentucky Derby. And Marty, for our Derby Watch Top 20 this week, we added two newcomers. So as always, let's start with the updated Top 20 grid and briefly talk about some of the odds changes you made regarding the Top 20.
Well, we have Country Grammar and Cara Caro, the 1-2 finishers, and the Peter Pan, which we will review here shortly, Jay. New to the top 20, Pneumatic was out. They were kind of ambiguous as to what they're going to do next with him. And then Modernist, who didn't run very well in the Peter Pan, he's out. But I was looking at my odds here, and we got a 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. I didn't do that on purpose, but that's the way it is. We've got with Tis the Law, Honor AP, and Art Collective, the top three again. Then you got Bob Baffert's trio of Authentic, who, of course, won the Haskell last weekend. We'll take a look at that. Uncle Chuck, who was 6-1 only in Pool 6 of the Kentucky Derby. I moved him down from 15 or 20 down to 10, just reflective of all the play he took in that. And then a third Baffert horse is on. He's the first of four 20-1 shots. Then we have 3 30-1s and 8 50-1. So we got the haves and the have-nots here, 7 weeks out from the Kentucky Derby.
Definitely a top-heavy list right now regarding the Kentucky Derby. There were two races for which there were point-scoring races last week on the road to the Derby. The biggest, of course, the Haskell. The 1, 2, 3 finishers from that race have been on our Derby Watch Top 20. And let's take a look at them and discuss their performances. Marty, let's begin with the victorious Authentic. What did you think of his race?
Well, you wrote extensively about it, Jay, and I'd like to throw it back to you here in a second. But clearly he dominated till about the 8th pole, and then this is what I want to ask you about. Bob Baffert and Mike Smith both said he tends to loaf or just kind of play around. It looks to our eyes as if he's getting tired, and obviously New York traffic was catching up, and another jump or two he would have actually won the race. But it's funny when a horse wins a race, you're kind of about him, and New York traffic ran well, and I thought Dr. Post was at somewhat of a disadvantage pace-wise and ran a pretty decent third. It might set him up for a good effort given enough pace in the Kentucky Derby. So kind of a mixed bag here with the Haskell.
Yeah, and especially with Authentic, he's a horse that I've written about many times previously. I've had my doubts about whether he's going to want to go the 1.25 miles of the Derby, if it's going to suit him. I thought that 1 1/8 miles was going to be at the outer limit of what he wants to do. And certainly from a visual standpoint, that looked the case the other day in the Haskell. The intriguing thing to me, Marty, was that the buyer figure for the race came back so strong. It was a 100, which is a career best for Authentic. The way I look at it is that maybe it's just Authentic with maturity, and here we are in mid-July. We're not talking about spring preps for the Derby anymore. It would be natural for a horse like that to get faster, but I still don't think, compared to the horses that we've got at the top of our list, like Tis the Law and Honor AP, who I don't have any concerns about them going out to the 1.25 miles. I still have that concern when it comes to Authentic. But the bottom line is he's run 5 times. He's won 4 of them. And the only horse who's ever finished in front of him was Honor AP, who's the second choice for the Derby right now. So even if you poo-poo his race, and we're doing that a bit here, we'll admit it, that's not a bad record to have. 4 for 5 lifetime, and the only horse who's beaten you is the second choice for the Derby.
Yeah, and it's not in the 100, as you mentioned. The buyer, they're all in the 100-ish range. Tis the Law and Art Collector and Honor AP. So he's right there with the big boys.
And then let's again go through these couple horses who finished behind him. You mentioned New York Traffic, just losing narrowly, making that late surge. He hasn't knocked off a big race yet this year, Marty, but he's turned in a series of really good races, second in the Louisiana Derby, second in the Matt Win, and now a second in this race, getting faster on the buyer figures every time. He's not ranked as one of the top Derby contenders, but you've got to respect, I think, that he shows up every time.
Well, I like what Saffie Joseph, his trainer, told you, and that usually he doesn't like to lose, and he sometimes gets angry or disappointed when he does get beat, but he was highly encouraged by that. As you know, for a number of weeks, Saffie was kind of betwixt and between what he was going to run in, and I think the way it's all played out for him from the Louisiana Derby on through the Matt Winn and through the Haskell, he's got to be pleased with how everything is shaken out for him, and now he's all set to train toward the Kentucky Derby.
And then to wrap things up on this race, the third place finisher, Dr. Post, he had been second previously in the Belmont Stakes. I had kind of the same takeaway that you did, just what you were mentioning a few moments ago regarding Dr. Post, Marty. I don't think the race unfolded well for him. The top two never came back. And I think this might end up being a sneaky good race to improve off of. He's going to train straight into the Kentucky Derby. And I just don't think this race unfolded to his advantage. And it's going to dirty up his form a little bit. And I think you're going to get a lot bigger price than you would have if he'd gone to the Derby off maybe a few weeks after a Belmont Stakes, if the calendar had played out that way. So I didn't think it was a bad race, all things considered.
Right. We saw the way he can close in the Belmont. And, Todd knows what to do with a horse like this. So I'm sure he's more optimistic than pessimistic when, off of that race. As bad as it might have looked on paper, I'm sure that Todd is not duly discouraged.
No, I think he'll be just fine going forward with Dr. Post towards the Derby, and I would think the 1.25 miles would certainly suit him. The other race that we wanted to discuss regarding our Derby Watch Top 20 from the past week was going back to last Thursday. That was the opening day of Saratoga's meet. The Peter Pan was the race that was run that day, and the top three finishers in that race are also on our Derby Watch Top 20. One of them was already on there. That was the third place finisher, Mystic Guide. But Marty, let's talk about the top two, which are the ones that we added to our list this week, Country Grammar and Caracaro. What did you think of their performances?
Well, of course, you and I both, I spent a lot of time down in Florida this winter, and it was the Fountain of Youth, I believe, where Country Grammar ran just okay. Chad Brown had said, I really like this horse. And so fast forward a few weeks, and we all learned that the Kentucky Derby was going to be delayed. I said, Chad, do you have anything that you think might ultimately be live for a September 5 Derby? He says, yeah, I don't know, maybe this horse. So lo and behold, he won with a great trip under Irad Ortiz, and he looks live coming in. We've got him at 30-1 on our list. So, ran a big race, did what he had to do, and now he's in.
And now we'll see. It looks like he's going to run back in the Travers Stakes, and that'll obviously be a significant test. It'll be against Tis the Law. It'll be going 1.25 miles. I liked his race as well, Marty. This is a horse who, when he ran, as you were referencing, back in the Fountain of Youth, it was just supposed to be a means to an end to get him going. But the goal at that point was to go to the Wood Memorial. And, of course, that race ended up getting canceled when racing in New York shut down. And as a result, you didn't see Country Grammar running for several months. But now that I think he can start stringing together a series of races and stay on a good work pattern, I think you'll see this horse continue to improve. And I'm really interested to see how he does when he runs in the Travers. As for the other two that finished behind Country Grammar, Caracaro, I thought Marty ran a remarkable race. First start in 6 months, first race around 2 turns, stakes debut. Just a really tough beat, but a strong performance. My concern with him would be if he bounces off something like that, because that had to be a hard race for him. What did you think of his race?
It had to be. He was another horse, Jay. There was a lot of talk about him down in Florida this winter, and there was proposal or just behind the scenes kind of proposals to buy the horse privately, et cetera. When you have a horse break, it's made in the way he did. It's that kind of thing where people are just coming out of the woodwork to try and buy him. So fast forward all this time, once he went on the shelf, he was kind of out of sight, out of mind. And like you said, the way he came back was rather phenomenal. Now, if he bounces in the Travers, would they run him back in the Kentucky Derby? I don't know. So he's kind of a wild card in this whole field, I would think, Jay.
And then to finish up this race, the Peter Pan, we'll talk about the third place finisher, Mystic Guide, who I thought Marty ran a sneaky good race in here. He was kind of out the back. The middle part of the race was very slow, especially the second quarter of the race. And he just lost position early. I think he should have been a little bit more into the race. And considering where he was a half mile into that 1 1/8 race, I thought he finished the race off pretty well. And he's another one who looks like he'll come back in the Travers. And I think that extra distance is going to suit him. What did you think of his race?
His race looked a lot like his One Other Than, where he emerged from a pack to run second to the Cassie horse, Tap It to Win. So I thought it was the last day of the mile looked very much the same. He was striding out beautifully. If they could just get him going a little bit earlier, that would probably help.
Exactly so, yes. He needs to be a little bit more into the race. Well, that's our look at the two races from last week that were point-scoring races towards the Kentucky Derby, the Haskell and the Peter Pan. That's the only video we've got this week. This is the only weekend in a long time and the only weekend going forward where there isn't a point-scoring race coming up this weekend. But we'll be back next week with a preview of the Shared Belief at Del Mar, scheduled right now to feature the likes of Honor AP and Cezanne. For Marty McGee, I'm Jay Privman. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.